Hello fellow photographers, ever wondered about the secret behind stunning images? Hint, it's all about mastering aperture and shutter speed. These two are the dynamic duo of photography, the yin and yang that work together to create that perfect shot. Understanding them is like learning to write with your camera. It gives you the control to shape your images just the way you envision them. So, let's dive in and demystify the magic behind aperture and shutter speed. First on the agenda, aperture. Think of it as the artist's brushstroke of your camera, controlling the depth of field. Much like how an artist uses different brush widths to create a variety of effects, photographers use aperture to manipulate their image's depth of field. A wider aperture, something like f1, 4, or f2, 8, creates a shallow depth of field. This means that only a small portion of your image will be in sharp focus, while the rest takes on a dreamy, blurred quality. It's a secret weapon for portrait photographers, helping to isolate the subject and make them pop. On the other hand, a narrow aperture, say f8 or f11, creates a wider depth of field. This brings more of your scene into focus, from the foreground to the background. It's a go-to for landscape photographers, ensuring that every detail of the scenery is captured in sharp clarity. But aperture isn't just about depth of field. It also controls the amount of light entering your camera. A wider aperture lets in more light, useful in low-light situations or when you want a faster shutter speed. Conversely, a narrow aperture lets in less light, helping to prevent overexposure in brightly lit situations. Remember, wider aperture equals more light and a narrower depth of field. Narrower aperture equals less light and a wider depth of field. Just like an artist chooses the right brush for the job, we, as photographers, need to choose the right aperture for our vision. Next we have shutter speed. It's your camera's timekeeper, determining how long your sensor is exposed to light. Think of it as the gatekeeper that controls how much light enters your camera. Shutter speed is measured in fractions of a second. When you shoot at a fast shutter speed, like 1/2000th of a second, that gate is open for a very short time. This freezes action in its tracks, capturing every minute detail of a fast-moving subject. It's the go-to setting for sports photographers, or when you're trying to seize that perfect moment in a high-speed event. But what happens when we slow things down, when we leave that gate open for a bit longer? Let's say you're shooting at a slow shutter speed, like half a second. In this case, your camera sensor is exposed to light for a longer period. This allows any movement in your frame to become a part of your image, introducing what we call motion blur. It's like painting with light, adding a sense of dynamism and flow to your images. Just picture a waterfall with that silky smooth water effect, or the light trails of city traffic at night. So, how do you decide which shutter speed to use? Well, it depends on the story you want to tell. Fast shutter speed equals less light and frozen action. Slow shutter speed equals more light and motion blur. It's all about finding the right balance to create your perfect shot. Now, the magic truly happens when you balance both aperture and shutter speed. Think of it as a dance where each partner brings a unique step to the floor. Aperture controls the depth of field, and shutter speed determines the duration of light exposure. Together, they create a harmony that gives your photographs character and depth. Consider this scenario. You're capturing a portrait. A wide aperture will give you that beautiful background blur, isolating your subject. Combine that with a faster shutter speed, and you can freeze even the subtlest movements, preserving every detail of the moment. Now let's flip the script. Imagine you're photographing a sweeping landscape or a group photo. Here, a narrower aperture like f8 or f11 provides a wider depth of field. This ensures everything from the foreground to the back is sharp and in focus. Complement this with a slower shutter speed to capture the full spectrum of light and detail. Remember, there's no one-size-fits-all solution in photography. It's about finding the perfect balance that suits your unique vision. Sometimes you might want to capture the world in sharp detail, and other times you might want to focus on a single, compelling subject. Mastering aperture and shutter speed opens up a world of creative possibilities. Experiment, find your style, and let your images tell your story. It's an exciting journey, and you're in the driver's seat, shaping how the world sees through your lens. So there you have it, aperture and shutter speed, the dynamic duo in photography. These elements are your creative toolkit, enabling you to capture the world as you see it. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more photography tips, and share your experiments with aperture and shutter speed. Happy shooting!